Thanks for joining us for another Velo podcast. My name is Mike Levy, but far more interestingly, I'm talking to this guy, Tech Editor Alvin Holbrook today. He's just got back from Spain where he's been riding Canyon's soon-to-be-released new gravel bike with an also soon-to-be-released new suspension fork that you may have seen on the internet just about everywhere. So there's an embargo on this bike. We're going to kind of talk around it, Since you guys have already seen this thing online, so you know a lot about it, we're going to talk more about the bike, Alvin's experiences riding the bike in Spain where he raced the Traka 100. We're also going to talk about his Traka time. And we're also going to talk about the new Cannondale Synapse. This one, I think the Synapse name has been around for like 20-something years now, 2 decades. But this one has a whole lot of cool stuff going on. Alvin, you've been a busy beaver because you've also been riding the brand new Synapse, which has a ton of stuff going on. Let's just jump right into it. Since that bike has already been released, you guys, everyone listening, if you go to YouTube or the Velo homepage, you can see Alvin's first ride video impressions of the Synapse. Alvin, let's talk about this bike. I remember back in the day when I worked at a bike shop, I used to sell a Cannondale Synapse bike, and they were comfort, speedy, endurance road bikes. That is still the brief here?
Yes. Before we dig into it, I just want to say I didn't want to interrupt your stream of consciousness. I'm not that interesting. I'm on this podcast most weeks. Thanks for making me sound better than I am. But
well, you've been a busy beaver, man. You doing stuff.
That's just the nature of the job. We've got to cover stuff, and
it is that time of the year as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is, and it makes it hard to slow down. Like it's a So Cannondale Synapse, the brief has been kind of for the first like 5 generations or thereabouts. The brief has largely been like a performance bike with like the edge taken off, and that's been their whole thing, their whole shtick. And like that kind of bore out in the geometry where like you look at it and it's like, oh, the handling geometry is like pretty quick on these bikes, like compared to like the Super 6. The trail figures weren't that different. The bottom bracket heights weren't that different. The wheelbase is a little bit longer. Fit geometry is a little bit taller here. And Cannondale, I think in a lot of ways, they said they wanted to go back to that because the 5th generation seemed to kind of be a little bit of a misstep, it seemed.
How so?
They only offered it in 1 carbon layup. And I mean, there's a couple things I wish they hadn't done, but the big thing, only 1 carbon layup. They didn't offer any like top level bikes, basically.
Okay.
The highest level bike or the most expensive bike that you could have bought was like a GRX Di2 2x bike.
Okay.
Yeah, which
that
is
kind of like
roughly equivalent to a
the
Trakka.
bike as like it sort of frames it as like a less high performance bike is sort of what you're getting at.
Yeah. That's a good way of saying it. And then this time around, you have the Lab 71 moniker, which is Cannondale's equivalent to S-Works. And then you have a SRAM. I mean, this bike's 1x13, but the Lab 71 bike gets SRAM Red access on it. The Explorer group set at that. And they are charging a lot of money for it, an ambitious number, I would say.
Should we say that number right now?
Oh,
just to scare everybody right away.
Yeah, here. I don't want to misquote it, so I'll pull it up on the site right now. Price US for the Cannondale Synapse Lab 71 with SRAM Red Explorer access, reserve 4249 wheels to the DT Swiss 180 hubs, top spec everything. $16,499, $22,099 Canadian, 15,799 euro. Yeah.
Oh my God. Bikes are expensive,
right?
but it's also like a sort of subjective thing, like it's hard to, we're not here to shit on the price too much. We're going to talk about the tech, but it's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. And if you kind of look at the rest of the lineup, like I said in the review, the pricing isn't that far off from the competition that you'd find in local bike shops. So the pricing is similar to like a similarly equipped Specialized Roubaix, or like for example, $7,500 gets you Ultegra Di2. That's within $500 of a Giant Defy, which is generally like a bit of a price leader. It's less expensive than what you'd get from Specialized or Trek, for that matter, as well.
Okay.
Yeah, and then it starts at $3,600 for a carbon bike with 105 mechanical, which, man, if
Seems
you had
reasonable.
told me that 10 years ago, $3,600 for 105 mechanical, that's a lot of money.
Yeah. we're not here to talk about price, like I said, but it is a funny thing. Like at the lower end of the price scale, we're getting way, way more bike, and you could spend $7-8 grand and get an absolutely like ridiculous bike, but you can also spend, 2 or 3 times as much as you used to be able to 10 or 15 years ago and get something even crazier. It's the ceiling has gone up, but like the middle, the meat and the entry are better than ever. So I don't want to get too bogged down in that crazy $16,000 number, but that's a big number.
They wanted something that's commensurate to the Super 6 Evo top end, which is similarly priced.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the idea there. So with that, there are 2 versions of the frame. Again, there's a standard modulus and there's a high modulus frame that you get on the Lab 71 and the Synapse 1 bikes. And that cuts like 150 grams. But the frame design, the frame features, I would hope that everything that I liked about the Lab 71 test bike that I had carries over to the other price points.
We got a lot of features, speaking of features, to talk about. Before we get there, though, I will say this is a damn good-looking bike. It is 98% of the way to looking absolutely amazing. Like, it looks like a fast, sporty road bike to me. And then I look at the gap between the back of the seat tube and the rear tire, and it looks like I can, put my leg in there, this big gap. It just, that sort of gap, it doesn't remind me of, sporty speed type thing, but I also understand why the gap is there, too, for comfort, tire clearance, all the things.
Yeah, it needs a 40 mil slick tire in there, doesn't it?
Yes, exactly.
To fill that space in. Yeah, I mean, it looks like if you were to take a gravel bike and put road tires on it, that's kind of the clearances that you're getting. And speaking of which, 42 mil tire clearance claimed from Cannondale with the ISO standard 4 mil on either side for road bikes. And then the fork will take up to a 48.
That's forward thinking.
Yeah, they're covering their butts, or maybe, I don't know, could this have been the Super X a few years ago or something like that, and they move stuff around? Who knows?
Yeah.
I really am thankful for that, because we've been edging towards this 40 mil tire clearance that we're getting on these bikes, and not all of them kind of fully fit the 40 mil, and the Synapse comfortably fits a 40, which I think is pretty sweet.
Dude, okay, first off, as everybody probably knows from listening to this podcast, I'm not a pure roadie, obviously. So I am talking out my ass here, but the road world is just, they keep edging slowly and slowly towards bigger and bigger tires. And part of the road world is, part of the issue is, I think it's driven by racing, people want to put on the speed suit and the speed tires, and they want to feel like the pros. So you want to run 28s or 25s, I guess less so these days, but you know what I mean, right? Whereas I think most of us should be running 32s and 34s and 36s and bigger. I think in a couple years, tires that size, we're all going to be running tires that size, and they're going to be a tiny bit heavier, but the tire weights are going to come down. They're going to get better tech. We're going to have higher volume tires. We're going there, and it's cool to see Cannondale offer a fast-looking road bike with a ton of tire clearance. That makes all the sense to me.
Yeah, I can't wait to run a 3-inch wide tire on my gravel bike in 7 years.
Right now, awesome. Josh right now, he's like, what? Levy just said something stupid.
Yeah, his spider senses are tingling right now, and wherever he's at.
Yeah. Anyways, let's move on from tire clearance, because I want to talk about, I think, probably the biggest feature of this bike, or features maybe might be the better way to put it, which is SmartSense. This is the second iteration of Cannondale's integrated light radar setup. I take it the first one wasn't overly loved, sounds like, but this one looks like it's much nicer.
Yeah, long story short, this is a much better integration of it. I think part of the integration, so everything is smaller than it used to be. The previous generation had the radar built in, in I believe it was a Lezyne branded taillight as part of it.
Yeah.
And it worked well, but it looked like a big reflector on the bike. Like,
Okay.
and it just didn't look very good. Like, I would say it was probably pretty effective in my limited time using it, but it just didn't look very good. It definitely prevented you from using a saddlebag easily with the bike.
Oh.
Because there's no other storage space on the bike. And this one is this radar taillight thing is this roughly the size, if not slightly smaller than a Garmin Varia radar. And it's mounted sideways underneath the saddle, so it looks pretty slick, I would say.
Okay, so just to zoom out a little bit, SmartSense as a whole, basically it refers to their, like, they use an integrated battery. It's in the down tube. There's a light on the front, and there's a radar light on the back, and the battery also powers the derailleur, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes, because that is cool. But first, all these wires are integrated in the frame. Where are the wires?
Yeah, so it's a good question. So to that rear Varia tail light thing, you have one going up through the seat tube and the seat post, not unlike you would have with the Shimano Di2 battery, right?
So it's a loose cable, like it goes in the seat post?
Yes, yeah, and it's the type of thing where, like, I mean, just like a Di2 wire, if you have one in a battery in your seat post, you have to mind it as you're kind of getting that seat post height where you need to. But it disconnects pretty easy. There's a quick disconnect. If you need to remove the seat post, you can do that. There is another wire going under the bottom bracket up to the front light, which is made by a company called Lightskin. And this front light is, I believe the first generation light was like a max 400 lumens claimed, and this one is 800 lumens claimed, and it's like a third of the size. The light's the third of the size. Like it looks a lot better, I would say. I wasn't able to test the beam pattern on it because the light wasn't working when I got it. Yeah, it looked like the cable disconnected in shipping. So, but
there we go.
Yeah, I have had good experience with Lightskin, and I actually saw another bike this past weekend with that same Lightskin light, and it was pretty darn good, actually. Like, at least I didn't have anything to complain about at night.
So, in the Bay Area, where you're riding lots of road bikes, are you using daytime running lights, front and rear, all the time?
I'm definitely using a rear tail light. I'm for sure using a rear tail light. If I'm riding by myself, I'm doing a daytime flash. If I'm not, I'm doing like a daytime pulse or something like that. So it's mostly on, and then there's a slight like pulsing to make it brighter. And then the key with the Varia lights is that, like, when it detects a car is coming, it'll like flash brighter and more frequently and then go back to its normal setting. And this does the same thing.
Do the lights easily come off the bike? And when you take them off, are there like cables dangling?
Not easily. No, not easily. That's kind of the thing. Like, you could, but they're bolted in place. Like, yeah. And then they have the cable. The rear, that Varia tail light, I think you could take off pretty easily. That front light though, that would be a pain to rewire, is what I would say.
Yeah.
And that's because the battery of the SmartSense system is in the down tube of the bike, which I'm sure we'll get to shortly. And the battery kind of slots into this hub. And so you kind of just push it in until it goes in, until it stops basically. And then the lights turn on and you're good. And so rewiring that light would take some patience, I would say.
Okay. Interesting. The battery itself, I saw that it's not a small battery. It looks like it would last a long time. And the really interesting thing for me, the thing that really gets my attention here, is that it powers the Axis rear derailleur via a wire. So the Axis derailleur is no longer wireless. I guess it's wirelessly controlled, but it's attached to a battery via a wire, but it lasts like a ridiculous amount of time, which for like a bike packer or somebody who's riding really, really far, like say if you were doing Tour Divide kind of stuff, or, you know, maybe not that crazy, but your battery is going to last forever now instead of 50 to 70 hours, I think, is a little Axis battery.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Cannondale goes as far as to say, like, I mean, I don't know off the top of my head what the capacity of those single like ETAP access batteries is, but they were saying like if that SmartSense battery, which is 11,600 milliamp hours for reference, if that battery gets to 5%, you have enough juice. The amount of juice you have is equivalent to a pair of Access SRAM batteries.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you're good to go.
I like that.
Yeah.
So, okay, question for you. At the back of the bike, if you were to look at the derailleur, is there a little cover over where the battery used to be? Like, does the wire go in there? What does it look like?
Yeah, so that's a great question. It's basically, I mean, so the derailleur itself doesn't change, right? So if you wanted to, you could slot in a SRAM battery in there and keep it moving if you didn't want
That was
to
my next question.
be powered by
Okay.
SmartSense. What it is basically is like an adapter that goes over like the contact points, and it still clicks into place. Like you press that flap over, click it into place. Except now that there's a wire going from that contactor plate adapter thing to the SmartSense plug hub thing inside
through
the bike.
chainstay, I imagine.
Yes, precisely. Yeah.
Okay, and it looks nice and clean. It still looks like a wireless derailleur, I assume.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like if you were to run like a Shimano Di2 system, honestly. Like it looks like that. I would say clean. Yeah.
Okay. My concern with that and the lights would be 2 years down the road. Is this stuff still supported? Like, okay, my question for Cannondale right now would be, what if I had a bike today with the first SmartSense system? Is it still supported? Can I still get the shit I need for that? Because that might tell me whether I want to buy the new version. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I asked about that. What I was told is that the lights or like the wires aren't that different from like they're the same as like an e-bike wire. So if you wanted to, theoretically, you could put an e-bike light or whatever e-bike lights that are compatible out there on this thing. So in that instance, as long as you're willing to do some wiring, yeah. I've done a lot of janky e-bike like light upgrades in my time where I was like, oh, I can't afford the upgrade. And so I spliced a wire in. And if I'm not recommending that you do that with your bike, regardless of how expensive or inexpensive it is.
You should do that.
Thank you. There you go. So, I mean, I wouldn't, like, if I really wanted to upgrade that front light, which at 800 lumens I think is fine for most people, unless you're like nighttime trail riding or you're doing something sketchy late at night and fast. Which I have, yeah, exactly. I'll have multiple front. I guess that's kind of the thing. Like I'll have multiple front lights on my bike, but the SmartSense thing doesn't preclude you from adding another front light if it gets sketchy out there. You know,
I think the point of this stuff possibly being unsupported, and maybe I'm talking out my ass, and Cannondale supports everything for 2 decades. I honestly don't know, to be honest. But the other thing to consider here is like, a bike like this, someone's going to have it for 2, 3, 4 years, and then they're probably going to move on to something different. So maybe that point doesn't really matter. I guess the second and third owners might care about that stuff, but
they're either going to have it. Yeah. At least my experience in bike shops, they're either going to have it for 2, 3, 4 years and upgrade to the next thing, which is just kind of the
20.
Society we live in. Yeah. Or they're going to hold on to it for 20 years.
Yeah.
Like they're going to ride it.
I love Cannondale Alvin. Like I
know you do.
I watched this video and I read the thing, and like, to me, this bike is one of the most forward-thinking road bikes out there right now. Huge storage hole in the down tube, tons of tire clearance, integrated access battery, integrated lights. It's pretty aero, fits huge tires. What did you think of the storage?
I was a big fan. Like I tried not to like go on and on about it in the video that we have, but I thought it was really like, I think it's the most effective down tube storage hatch that I've personally experienced on a road bike. It's big.
Why?
For one. Yeah.
Okay.
It's really big. The frame around it is rubberized. It's bolted in place. So if something were to happen, which I don't think would happen, like you could replace it. But like I think we've talked about this in a prior podcast. Like part of me like slightly worries that with some of these hatches, like, is that going to damage the paint? Probably not, because of the injection molded plastic that these things are made out of. But Cannondale, I think, did a really good job with this. It's really useful, and even with the SmartSense battery, if you have SmartSense on your bike, because right now it only comes on one bike.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty darn big. I was able to fit like my Silka Tatico hand pump in there in the storage bag proper. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was able to fit the full pump, which, I mean, it's a mini pump, but it's a long mini pump. And I was able to fit it in the bag and into the frame with other stuff.
I wonder if I could get my 1-Up pump in there, the big boy.
Good question. We can measure it and find out.
Yeah. Interesting. And there's a light in there as well, too, which seems hokey to me, but probably only added like a handful of grams if you've already got a big battery in there.
Probably. Yeah. I would say it probably didn't add too much. You know, on that matter, I would have liked to see Cannondale kind of offer like maybe like a race day version of that SmartSense battery where they like cut the capacity by like half or something. And it's like, because it's pretty easy to charge that battery. You don't have to actually pull it out. There's another port on the down tube. You just open up the hatch cover or whatever, not the hatch cover, but like the port cover. You just stick a USB-C in there. And that's pretty cool. You don't need a thing to charge your access battery, like, or your Varia, which uses a micro USB-C plug inexplicably. Like, it's just one port. That's pretty cool. And it'll do, I didn't put this in the review, but it'll charge via pass-through too. So while I was riding, I stuck another, exactly. So I stuck another battery pack on the bike and it still worked. So.
Oh man. Interesting. Okay. This thing looks fucking sick. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. If you're into the integration, of course.
Yeah. I mean, Cannondale's always doing something cool, if you ask me. And what I like about Cannondale is I think that they know that a lot of the stuff that they're going to do or they want to do, or that they're doing, they're providing reasons for people to not like the bike. Like, they're being very divisive, I should say. They're not like, it would be way easier to make a new comfort road bike with a lot of tire clearance and a storage hole and not have integrated lights and this and that, you know? And it would still be a pretty cool bike. But once they put the SmartSense stuff on it, which, like you said, only comes on one bike, but once they put that on it, it's sort of, I want to say pigeonholes the bike, but like in a good way. I think it makes the market for that bike even smaller, but I love that they did it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's something that I really appreciate, especially like people kind of complain about bikes looking cookie cutter and all looking the same. Yeah. And while I largely agree with that, and this Synapse looks like kind of like a stretched out version of all those race bikes that look the same too. Yeah, it does. Like, I appreciate that they're doing something here that I feel is legitimately like it's useful. Yeah.
Okay. You've had a few rides on the bike because you had to depart to Spain very quickly to do some other cool stuff. Early impressions about the new Synapse? What do you think?
So in the video, I said, like, you know, this thing climbs fine. Like, it's nothing to write home about. And then I said, like, descending, I liked it. And it was like, I felt pretty comfortable on it pretty immediately. And I was like, I don't think I got any PRs on either of those things. And I didn't get any climbing PRs, but I PR'd a bunch of segments on the descent that I have near me. Like,
and you didn't think you did, which means you were feeling relaxed, like you weren't trying to PR anything and you accidentally did? Is that what you...
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about it. I wasn't like... Yeah, I have a friend here who, I don't know, he's got some sort of disconnection. He's got Alex Honnold syndrome, where he kind of just descends like a madman. And I like try my best to match his lines and his breaking points and everything. And like, that's when I usually get my descending PRs. But I got my descending PRs on this bike. And there's a few reasons for that. And I think part of it's like added wheelbase. I think probably a little bit... I was going to
say the length.
Yeah, a little bit more length I think is helpful. It doesn't necessarily feel... It just doesn't feel as spry as like these race bikes that people like to compare to or think about. But for me, most of the time, if I didn't have like any inclination to want to race this season, which I have been, unfortunately, like
it ruins everything.
The handling is great. Yeah,
very cool. Okay. Neat. Are you going to get more time on that bike, or is anybody else going to ride that thing?
I sent it back. Because I don't have space
Okay.
because I have a lot of other bikes. But
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if we bring in like a Synapse at like a more palatable price point. I think that would make a lot of sense.
That makes
down
all the
line.
sense.
Yeah, something that more people are going to ride, I think would be really good because I don't expect many people to be on this Lab 71 bike.
Yeah. It's the one I want, but it's definitely not the one I would buy for $22,000.
Yeah.
22,000
I mean, I'm sure you're digging like
pesos.
exactly. Like I'm sure you're digging like the Momo design, like one piece bar or whatever. It's got like the forged carbon applique or whatever, which can look really bad on some cars, like the forged carbon look. But on this, I think it looks pretty good, even though it's not actually forged carbon.
Yeah.
So
okay, interesting. Is one more question? Is there an aluminum version of this bike, or is it all carbon?
there is, but it's not getting updated. So the updates are coming to the carbon bike.
Okay.
So the aluminum version carries over, which is a perfectly cromulent. It's just a good bike. Like no major complaints. It just doesn't get the updates of this one.
Yeah. Okay. Alvin, let's talk about another new bike. You flew to Spain 4 days ago or 5 days ago or something like that to race the Traka 100 on a new Canyon. And we should say this bike is still embargoed until like, when is it embargoed? June or July?
So the fork itself is still under embargo, yes. But if you're on the internet, you've seen it already.
Yeah.
So I can't say anything about what it looks like, or I can't say anything about like how the internals work or anything like that.
Yep.
I can't say like, I just can't say stuff about how it functions, but I can say that I've ridden it and I can tell you what it was like.
Let's talk about the fork first. That's, to be honest with you, that's what I'm most interested in. I know the bike has a lot of really cool details, but we can't talk about yet. But
which is on the Canyon Grail. It was on the Canyon Grail, which is their race bike, which has been around for a year or thereabouts.
Okay, so let's stick on the suspension fork then, because that's the thing I really want to talk about. In the mountain bike world, DT Swiss isn't a huge player, to be honest with you. I've ridden a DT Swiss fork. It was like a mid-travel trail fork many years ago, and it had a reverse arch, sort of like this one does.
Yeah.
It was light. It worked just fine. It was a little finicky, to be honest. And also, I don't think that people, like when I think of suspension, I personally don't think of DT Swiss. It's not like a big suspension company that comes to mind. You think of hubs and wheels and stuff. But the new fork seems interesting, and I think it makes sense for them to kind of be into this market. It's a bit of a niche market, and I think they make light stuff. So it's right side up.
Yeah,
it looks like it has
the
30 to 50
crown.
mils of travel.
Yeah, so it says it on the side. It says it's got like, I believe 40 mil travel. Something like that.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And it says it's engineered by DT Swiss. I imagine it's super light. I imagine it has a lockout. You can't tell me exactly how it felt though, can you? Because of the embargo.
Not exactly. No, I can tell you that I raced the Traka 100, which was an awesome event. And talking with a few colleagues that didn't have a suspension fork on their bike, like they were talking about how sore their forearms were. And I was fresh. I was fresh at the end. So, and there were a lot of times where I love this tire as much as anyone else, I should say. I did a fast gravel tire roundup in 2024 preparing for SBT gravel because that is a smooth, fast, almost like just almost road level of grip from your dirt roads. And I was talking about 40 mil tires. I got some flack for that. We had 40 mil Schwalbe G1 RS tires on this bike, which is a slick tire effectively. It's a very fast tire, fast rolling tire, but a very slick one. And the Traka 100 was rainy most of the day. Like if you look at photos of me on social media or whatever, like my face is just covered in mud. Like just covered in mud because it was so muddy. And I do attribute a lot of that front end grip that I had that I wouldn't have had otherwise to that fork. I really
Yeah.
think it was making a difference.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. It's I assume it's air sprung. It would have to be to save weight. One of the most interesting things that I saw about this fork is the cable routing. I think so. I've been reading comments online on other cycling websites.
Don't you know
And
not to read the comments?
Yeah.
I read
Whenever
the
I
comments
start
all the
feeling
time.
good
I'm
about
a masochist.
myself, I read comments.
Yeah.
A lot of the comments were, it sure looked like road-based riders or riders coming from a road background complaining about how a suspension fork looks, aerodynamics, complication, and that kind of stuff. So looks at aerodynamics, DT Swiss, that's where the reverse arch comes in. But also, interestingly, that brake line, the front brake line runs through the headset top cap, like underneath the stem, it looks like from photos. And it looks like it runs inside the steerer tube and then out the bottom of the steerer tube to a captured spot on the back of the arch. So when you look at the bike from most angles, you can't really see the brake line, and it plays well with internal routing. So it looks like they've done good things there.
It looks very neatly integrated, for sure. Yeah, it's compared to everything else out there, like it looks quite good, I would say, and it looks befitting on the Grail that I was riding.
Would you say you come from a road background, so you probably have a different perspective than I do? Compared to something like this from a road background.
Your poor invert. Yeah.
my tired invert.
Yeah, your poor Cane Creek invert fork. Yeah.
As a roadie, what visually appeals to you more? Like something like this, no arches, inverted, or something like the DT Swiss fork that still looks smooth, but definitely looks like a suspension fork?
That's a good question. I don't mind the look of a suspension fork personally. Like, I think are there worries about aerodynamics? Sure. But and I do agree that aerodynamics matters even at slower speeds, especially if you're on gravel. Like if you're going into a headwind or a side, like you're getting like wind from all over the place, like having a bike is more aerodynamic is going to make the ride easier for you than a bike that isn't. But that being said, like I think the pros often outweigh the cons of a suspension
100%.
fork. I don't think it's like something that people should be riding all the time everywhere, to be clear.
I do.
I know you do. That's why I'm saying that.
Yeah.
Like, but I think there are times where like a suspension fork really makes sense and it outweighs whatever losses you might have with regard to aerodynamics or weight. Like if that's a
especially
concern.
for not pros, especially for normal people, like comfort, confidence, traction, and like I know people talk about geometry changes. It's not that bad, and a lot of bikes now are made to accept a suspension fork. Not enough, some of them.
Not
but
enough,
also,
but a lot of them are,
people talking about raising the handlebars, for a lot of these people, this wouldn't be a bad thing. Trust me, if your handlebars are 20 or 30 millimeters higher, it would not be a bad thing, people. And you could also figure it out, lower them. So obviously I'm a big suspension fork fan. Weight though, I think that's when you start, that to me, like, so we talked about Steamboat area, SBT gravel. That's like a very smooth, fast course.
Absolutely.
Something like that, if you're out there for 6,000 feet of climbing, 10,000 feet of climbing, then that's where I could start to see, like, I might be just fine with my rigid fork, way lighter. It actually is more aero because the average speeds are higher. Weight-wise, these forks, the invert is just under 1,000 grams for the SL, which is pretty light considering a 32 taper cast. Fork. Yeah, 32 taper cast is
like
claimed
13, right?
1,160 claimed.
Oh, okay, it's lighter than I thought.
And Rudy SL is 1,200 claimed. So if I had to guess, I wouldn't think that the DT Swiss fork would be as light as the Cane Creek, which is just under 1,000. The SL, obviously. But I bet you this DT Swiss fork weighs, if I had to guess, 1,100 grams or less. I would assume. I would hope so.
Whatever it does weigh, like it's going to add more than your carbon fork for sure. Like the average carbon fork is probably going to be in the 500 gram range for reference. And if 500 grams is a little bit less than a pound, like
more than a pound.
Yeah, a little bit more than a pound. Sorry. That does make a little bit of a difference to your bike, at least with regard to how sprightly it feels. But again, like over like a long ride where you're kind of not, maybe you don't have the clearest mind to choose the best line every time.
Exactly.
It helps quite a bit. The worry that I have, and I think that the concern that people aren't thinking about, especially if they haven't owned a mountain bike or ridden a mountain bike, is service intervals, keeping that thing like running properly. And we've talked about this. I've asked you, how often are you maintaining your forks? And you said, Levy.
You're putting me on the spot here.
Someone at Fox is
gonna send me an angry email.
It doesn't have to be on your Fox.
Well, that's the example I have here. To be fair, the Rudy has similar kilometers on
example,
or miles.
Yeah.
I did 7,000 miles on my Fox 32 taper cast before I dropped the lowers, which is not acceptable, everybody. But I want to say,
on your original O-rings and wipers,
original
as well,
everything.
I'm guessing. Yeah.
And original
fluids,
everything, and it worked great the entire time. Now the one thing is, I do keep my seals very clean. I wipe them off all the time, before and after rides, because I'm worried about stanchion tubes. I don't want to be
learn
replacing
how to floss those stanchions. Yeah.
Right? But if that fork could go for 7,000 miles, which is like 200,000 kilometers if I did the conversion, I don't know how many hours that is, but like it worked just fine the entire time. There was zero issues with it, maybe a little less active. And then when I did drop the lowers, everything was fine inside. Like the oil wasn't great, obviously, but it takes 5 minutes, drop a lower, 10 minutes to clean, take 20 minutes to just do a lower drop. So the service that you're talking about, the 50-hour service, that would just be a lower drop. And it's what they're going to tell you in the manuals, and it's what you should do. It's not what you have to do. So
you don't have to do anything. You don't have to lubricate your chain. You don't have to add air pressure your tires when they run out either.
Whatever,
right?
I guess, but my point is that you shouldn't be put off by service intervals, because you should definitely follow them, but you definitely don't have to. And a lower service where you just drop the fork lowers is pretty quick and easy. And there's lots of how-to videos and stuff, But it is more complicated.
Videos. It is more complicated, and there's so many people that I know who already don't bleed their hydraulic brakes, which, like, some of these bikes need them legitimately, and people are like, they're not afraid, but they don't think that they have the capability to. What'd you say?
I said they should be for some of the brakes. It depends what you're working on.
Oh my gosh. Okay, yeah, but like for people that are running Shimano GRX mechanical, that is a super easy brake to bleed. Super easy. Yeah. You don't have to worry about what you're doing with the fluids afterward, because it's mineral oil. Like, Shimano will tell you no, but you can buy like one of those $15 blade kits from Amazon, and they work pretty darn good. Yeah. Like, as long as you...
I have them. They're great. Yeah.
I do too. They work great.
Yeah, they're perfect.
They work awesome. Anyways, so I worry about it because that fork's an investment, regardless of what fork you're getting, whether it's this DT Swiss Canyon fork or like a Rudy or that invert or something like that. All of those things are investments, and you want them, like, you don't want that shit sticking when you're riding. You want it to rebound properly, and you want it to have ideal performance. And as someone who like was afraid of maintaining their bikes on their mountain bike or their suspension on their mountain bike, and didn't have the good luck of being able to ride 7,000 kilometers without having any issues, like a poorly performing fork is not good. Like it's actively detrimental.
Especially if you are doing big, huge rides or a race or something, and you're out there for 5, 10, 20, 30 hours, whatever your adventure might be. that's when you start thinking about, is it worth the possible trouble? Just any suspension fork in general. And it's I live in the Sea to Sky area. I live in Squamish. I have a gravel bike. The majority of gravel riders here have dropper posts on their bike for very obvious reasons.
They're not maintaining
I don't want to. Yes, definitely not. And I could tell.
There you go.
I threw it out. I just threw out a 10-year-old reverb where the stanchion tube up the back of it was like this 1-inch wide silver stripe because some like rocks or something got caught in the wiper.
Gosh.
So I just like, here you go, get in the garbage can. Anyways,
yeah, that's my worst nightmare.
One of the reasons I don't run a dropper post on my gravel bike is because I'm from the era where dropper posts were relatively new way back in the day, and they fucking sucked. They broke like every 20 minutes. So in my mind, when I'm out there doing a 5 to 10 hour ride, the last thing I want to deal with is my dropper post like falling 2 inches, So I just don't run one, and I probably should. But
the reverb sucked until recently, to be fair.
Yeah. A lot of them had issues, to be honest. Like it's just so many cartridges going, and I think things are a lot better now, but I don't think a dropper post is for me on my gravel bike. I'm nervous about it. So suspension though, 100%.
Yeah, I think the direction that we're going here is that suspension fork can be net beneficial for more people than you'd think.
Yes.
If you're it's not the same as running a wider tire, which is en vogue right now. Like running a suspension fork is not the equivalent of doing that.
No.
No. Yeah, it just isn't. Like it's the difference between having damped suspension and undamped suspension, which is effectively what like a tire is. It's undamped.
Exactly.
So it could be moving around and doing that type of thing. But this will compress, take the hits and stay in that travel and then uncompress when it's done, which is great.
Yeah.
It does help you charge faster and feel better.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think the most important thing, like not only can you go faster, but it's like hour 3, I'm super beat up, my forearms hurt. Like I don't have to be as precise with my line through like some super chunky stuff. I can just relax a bit more, and that's the big benefit.
Yeah, precisely.
One question about the fork before we move on.
Yeah.
Tire clearance. Do you think you could get a 2.2 on that thing?
I saw a Schwalbe Thunderbird at the Traka, which is a 2.1 claimed, but it's a narrow 2.1. Yeah. So I would say it would be tight if you can do a 2.2.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, can't confirm or deny, but it would be tight.
Yeah. And one last thing also, we don't know if this is going to be available on its own in the future or only on Canyons. I think it's only going to be on Canyons for the first little while, but DT Swiss is not making an entire suspension fork to only put on Canyons, I don't think.
Yeah, I wouldn't say so. To your point with DT Swiss, like talking with them, they have a huge team for their wheels and hubs and everything along that. But their suspension team is much, much smaller. And this is clearly a big investment from DT Swiss to collaborate with Canyon on something like this, allegedly, because you're seeing Canyon DT Swiss on it, right? So one would think that it would require, I don't know, what are they going to do with it? Leave it to just Canyon? I don't know if that makes business sense.
Yeah, they probably want to make way more of these forks, sell some of them aftermarket, and hopefully get some more OE spec as well too, maybe. But I think it'll be Canyon exclusive, at least for a year, would be my guess. Anyway, we can't talk about the damn bike, though. It's also a new Canyon. Alvin can't say anything about the bike because of the embargo, which we do have to respect. I didn't go to the press camp, but I did go to the internet where I've seen many pictures of the new gravel bike. I don't know the name.
Is there a new gravel bike? I didn't know there's a new gravel bike.
I think there is. I think there is.
All right.
It looks like it's got more tire clearance, etc. It's probably got no Canyon. It's probably got a ton of interesting features. And we will talk about it when the embargo lifts, which is when, Alvin?
On the suspension fork, I am not sure if I can say, but it will be soon enough. It'll be soon enough. It'll be soon enough that you could take advantage of it and keep on riding this year and have fun.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
What about the bike, though?
Is there a new bike coming? I don't know.
I think it's July. I think the embargo is in July. Everybody,
Yeah,
we'll talk more about it then.
Yeah.
Lastly, Alvin, you did a bike race in Spain.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. When it rains in Spain, is it mostly on the plains, or is it also all around Girona where you happen to be for a canyon press camp?
Oh, it's everywhere. It's everywhere.
Yeah, okay.
I've quickly learned that apparently the rainy season in Girona and most of Spain is in July, and I'd have to have our own Andrew Hood, who lives in Spain, like confirm that. But
Yeah.
Apparently one of the least good times of the year to visit Girona, but it happens to be when the Trakka is going, and who cares? I rode through the rain and the mud and everything.
You're not made of sugar.
Exactly. I thought that my eyes, like I had like an eye infection at the end, and it just turns out that my eyes were just clearing out all the stuff I kept forcing into it, all the dirt. So
I was going to say, did Traka give you pink eye? Did you get like cow poo in your eye or something?
I worried quite a bit about it, actually. I worried. I was on WebMD pretty hardcore. Just like, what is happening to my eyes? I can't see. Like, I could see, but like not really. And we were having dinner together, and I just like was trying so hard to like be chill about it. Just being like, I don't know how long this is gonna last, and like maybe that's the American in me that's afraid to go to the hospital or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That
so you
could
did
be what it is.
You did the Traka 100, which is the shorter one. Still pretty rowdy. There's also a 560 or a 540 and like a 3 something as well.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of them. There's the Traka Adventure, which is 560 kilometers, which is 330 miles, 20 miles, something like that is my guess. There's a Traka 360, which is 220 miles or something like that. And then there's the Traka 100. And I thought there was a Traka 50, but I don't entirely remember.
How did the race go, and what was your course like?
Yeah, it started off just terribly rainy. Well, actually, no, it didn't. So I have a video, and a bunch of this is on my social media, like on my Instagram account. You can follow me at cool_Alvin with a K. And I'm like, oh yeah, the sky's looking awful over there. It's just looking so dark. And within like the first 3 kilometers, it just starts dumping rain. And at the same time, with this Traka 100, within the first 3 to 5K, you've just got climbing. You have, I don't remember how many meters in elevation total it was, but I think it was like 5,000-ish feet of climbing over the 60 miles or 100K, and which isn't that bad in the grand scheme of things, but a bunch of it is concentrated in the first half of the event. And I'm telling you, I love those Schwalbe G1RS Pro tires. They're fast, they roll well, they grip better than you think. But, when everyone's trying to scramble up these loose dirt roads and trying to scramble for position, and oh man, that was tough.
You were working hard.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun though.
Was there any single track? Was it mostly gravel road?
Yeah, I would say, so they estimated that it was about 70% like dirt and gravel, which I would say is what it was. So I would say the first half is just like climbing up and down through dirt roads. You have some fun, like there's one bit that I remember specifically where it's just especially dumping rain, but you're going down this like winding dirt road, or this like paved road, and it's just beautiful. Even though it's just pouring rain, you can't see anything. I'm like, man, this is amazing. Like, and I was just so cold and so wet and so dirty, but like so happy.
Yeah.
That's
not a terrible place to ride a bike, eh?
Yeah. Great opportunity. And then the second half of it is like, or the middle, probably like 30-40% of it is relatively flat for the most part. And so you can get going, I was doing probably 32-33K, like 19-20 miles an hour through a lot of these dirt roads just because they're so fast. And so it's a great combination of that dirt and then not dirt. And then there's one more climb at the end. And because it was raining so hard, and because my tires were basically slicks, like I couldn't ride up it. I had to walk up it. But afterward you get some pretty cutty going through stuff along like a river, and it gets pretty technical, and that's a lot of fun too. Like,
Nice.
yeah.
Would you recommend the Traka for people?
Oh, 1,000,000%. I want to go back. Like, if
Okay.
not to cover for Velo, like I'd be really interested
Just
in
to do
going
it.
for myself.
Yeah.
What was really funny, so like we have this gallery of like the bikes of the Trakka, and the bikes that are there are for the most part Trakka 200 and Trakka Adventure people that were just finishing their events in that time, because the Trakka doesn't call it a race, even though there's positioning and that type of thing. And I remember writing down in my notes, because I'll take notes as I'm like working through the stuff. Biggest trend I'm finding here: most common bike, a sponsored one. Everyone that's there is like getting, like, they're with some sort of team or something like that, and it just feels like Euro cool, you know, like so many. And I don't know, there's not a North American gravel event that I've been to that kind of has that Euro cool feel. You know?
Okay.
Which,
Interesting.
I mean, some people might say like, oh, Euro cool, more like everyone's wearing Pont Normal and Map, which is also the case, but it was frankly like pretty enchanting. Like,
okay. All right. Alvin, you were there with a bunch of other media people for this media camp to race the Traka.
Yeah.
In my experience, these press camps, these media camps, they could be a little competitive. Like, you get a bunch of these like editors together. People love flexing on each other, you know, especially editors from competing outlets. Was there any sense of competition between the media during the Traka 100? Because that's where my mind automatically goes. Unfortunately, I'm broken like that.
That's a great question. I unfortunately have maybe one. What's the smallest bone in my body? I'm trying to think of like a small bone, like this
Something
tip
in
of my
your ear.
finger. Oh, okay, there you go. Whatever it is, the smallest bone. I'm thinking about like the tip of this finger. This is competitive for me. Everything else is like non-competitive. And for me, like, for example, there's one feed station at the Traka 100. And again, talking about it being like kind of Euro cool, there is a green zone in there, which if you've ever done road racing, like, it's an area where you can kind of just throw your trash while you're riding. I've never had that in a gravel race before.
Never heard of it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've experienced it elsewhere, the green zone, and there was one here. I was one of the few people to stop at that feed station. I wanted to see what the food was like.
Yeah, okay.
I didn't
like
eat
it,
any
Alvin.
food, but I wanted to say hi and say thank you for being there and say what's up.
Yeah.
And I definitely like talked with people and that type of thing. Not to say I wasn't pushing myself, because I was definitely pushing myself, but I probably could have gone harder. There was a bunch of media that did go very fast.
Yeah,
for
of course. Yeah.
Not me.
Okay.
I didn't go very fast. I would say I finished, I don't know, I didn't look in the standings, but I finished in like 4 hours 15 minutes.
I love that you didn't even look at the standings. Like, you didn't even give a shit. For me, if I was lined up to go to this camp, this Canyon press camp, I would be more like, I would be feeling anxious about the Traka 100 and like racing it. That's what like 87% of my focus would be on. And the remaining little bit of focus would be on like this like fucking work thing I've got to do or something or other about this bike or whatever. I would just be like focused about going hard for the race. So somewhere between me and you is like the right normal person.
I would say so. Like, you know, if it was an event that I have done in the past, I probably would have tried to go a little bit faster. But the one thing that I love about gravel events in general is that it feels, I don't know if this is a word, equality. Everyone, like, you go to a road race, and I say this because I was at a road race that 2 weeks ago that I got dropped at. And so my experience is completely different than that of my teammates. However, you go to a gravel event, my experience that I had was pretty darn similar to the experience that another cycling journalist who finished in under 4 hours had, or something like that. Like, because they're dealing with the same stuff, you know, and I love that. And the person who finished like an hour or two after me had a similar experience as well. And, you know, why push myself if I as if I can share those experiences with other people.
Yep, exactly, Alvin. Exactly. You are a much better, nicer person than me. Let's just end it there.
No, I'm cope. That's cope. That's cope for not being as strong as I want to be.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, Alvin, we've covered a hell of a lot of tech on this show. Thanks for coming on. I know you're a bit jet lagged. You literally just got back from Spain, like, I don't know, some hours ago or something or other. So
Yeah, I got home less than 12 hours ago.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I appreciate you coming on and telling us all about the new bikes. We learned a bunch of stuff today about the new Cannondale Synapse, which sounds like a really cool road bike that I am personally interested in. We learned about the new upcoming suspension fork, some sort of new bike from a company, possibly embargoed. We won't talk about it, but and then we also learned about the Trakka. So thank you, everybody that's listening. You could go to the Velo homepage and find out a whole bunch of information about the Trakka and about that new Synapse, and when the embargo lifts, about the new bike. Let us know what you think about a suspension fork on a gravel bike. Is it silly? I don't think it is, but let us know in the comments, and we will see you guys next week.